We grow up hearing this all the time. Just be kind and good things will come back to you. And for a while, that sounds right. It sounds fair. It sounds human. But then you live a little, you go out into the world, and you realize something strange. Sometimes the kinder you are, the worse people treat you. They ignore you, they walk over you, they smile while taking advantage of you, and you're left wondering, wait, wasn't I doing the right thing? If that's ever happened to you, you're not alone. It's one of the most frustrating truths of life, and the Stoics knew it well. They didn't believe kindness should be a weakness, but they also knew it could become one if it came from the wrong place. See, there's a difference between kindness and pleasing people. There's a difference between being generous and being afraid to say no, and that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this video. We're going to look at why kindness, when misunderstood, leads to disrespect. We'll explore what Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught about boundaries, self-respect, and the real strength behind being kind. And we'll walk through how to show kindness without ever being taken advantage of again. So, if you've ever felt like being nice just makes people ignore you, this might be the truth you've been waiting to hear. But before we begin, I would appreciate it if you liked the video, so you can help me continue spreading knowledge. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly recommend you do so and activate the bell, so you don't miss any future videos on Stoicism and self-improvement. Now let's start with the real question. What kind of kindness are we actually talking about? The way we think about kindness today, it's a bit messed up. Modern kindness versus Stoic kindness. Let's be honest, a lot of what we call kindness today isn't really kindness at all. It's fear, it's guilt, it's trying to be liked at any cost. You might recognize this feeling when you say yes, even though you're exhausted, when you apologize for things that aren't your fault, when you go out of your way to please people who wouldn't even hold the door for you. That's not kindness, that's self-erasure. And the Stoics, they'd call that a moral error. Because true kindness, according to Stoic philosophy, isn't about making people happy. It's about doing what's right, no matter how people react. See, in today's world, a lot of us learn to be nice as a survival tactic. We think that if we're gentle, generous, agreeable, we'll avoid conflict and we'll earn people's approval. But the truth is, that kind of kindness doesn't come from strength. It comes from a quiet fear of rejection. Now let's compare that to what the Stoics believed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." He wasn't saying to bend over backwards for people. He meant live with principle, treat others with dignity, but don't base your actions on whether someone claps for you or not. Kindness to the Stoics was a form of internal discipline, not a social strategy. It meant choosing patience instead of anger, offering help without expecting anything, speaking truth, even when it's uncomfortable, and doing all of that without needing a thank you. They didn't perform kindness, they practiced it, quietly, confidently. But here's where it gets real. Modern kindness often feels like a transaction. You're nice, and deep down, you're hoping someone will like you for it. And when they don't, it stings, it feels like betrayal. But Stoic kindness is freedom. Because you're not doing it to win points. You're doing it to live in harmony with your values. It's like this. One person gives a compliment because they want one back. Another gives a compliment because it's true. And they walk away expecting nothing. Only one of those is Stoic. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't be nice. It just means if your kindness is built on fear, it will always cost you peace. So ask yourself, are you being kind? Or are you being afraid to upset someone? Because if you're constantly holding back your real thoughts, if you're afraid to set boundaries because it might make someone uncomfortable, that's not strength, that's surrender. The Stoics would say live with virtue, but never trade your dignity for approval. And here's something to remember: a person who's truly kind won't always be liked, but they will always be respected. So the next time you're being kind, check your motive. Are you trying to help, or are you trying to be liked? Because only one of those paths leads to self-respect. Now that we've seen the difference, let's talk about the psychology behind why people actually disrespect those who are too kind. Why? People stop respecting you when you're too nice. So why does it happen? Why is it that the more agreeable you are, the more some people start treating you like you're disposable? It's frustrating, right? You're doing your best to be thoughtful, considerate, helpful, and instead of gratitude, you get silence, entitlement, or even manipulation. The answer, believe it or not, has less to do with you and more to do with human psychology. See, we're wired to respond to status and boundaries. Whether we like it or not, people naturally observe how we carry ourselves, and they treat us based on what we tolerate. If you're always available, always saying yes, always putting others first while putting yourself last, that signals something powerful, but not in the way you'd hope. It says this person doesn't value themselves enough to say no, and sadly, that makes it easier for others to stop valuing you too, even if you're a good person, even if your intentions are pure. Let me give you a real example. A friend of mine, we'll call him Ray, is the kindest guy you'll meet. Always giving, always helping, always covering for people at work. But what started happening? People stopped asking and just expected it. He wasn't appreciated, he was used. And eventually, even when he said no, they got annoyed. Why? Because he trained them to believe he never had limits. Now, I'm not saying you should be cold or selfish, not at all. But here's what the Stoics would say: you must honor your own dignity first, or others won't. Epictetus taught that we're only responsible for our own thoughts and actions, not for controlling how others perceive us. And when you're constantly giving without boundaries, you're actually stepping outside of what's in your control and into the dangerous territory of trying to manage people's emotions. It becomes exhausting, and worse, it invites disrespect, because people often confuse compliance with weakness, and kindness, when delivered without strength, looks like fear. That's the real issue. Not the kindness itself, but the lack of power behind it. The truth is, people respect those who respect themselves. You ever notice how someone with strong boundaries doesn't even have to raise their voice to be taken seriously? That's the kind of quiet power Stoicism teaches. And it's not about dominating others. It's about being rooted in your own values. So next time you feel tempted to overextend, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of compassion or out of fear? Because that small difference changes everything. And it leads me to ask you something. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt disrespected just because you were trying to be kind? Maybe at work, maybe in a relationship, maybe with a friend who kept taking. I'd really like to hear your experience, because it's something a lot of us deal with, and it deserves to be talked about honestly. Now, let's explore the next piece of the puzzle. What actually happens when kindness is given without any boundaries at all? Here's the part no one really warns you about. Kindness without boundaries isn't just ineffective, it's dangerous. It opens the door for others to treat you like a doormat, even if they don't mean to at first. Because when you give too much, When you always say yes, when you never stand your ground, you accidentally teach the people around you that your needs come second, and over time, they stop asking if you're okay. They just assume you'll handle it. They assume you're fine, even when you're not. I've seen it happen so many times. You're the strong one, the nice one, the one who always stays late at work, the one who listens to everyone's problems but never shares your own, the one who says, "Don't worry, I've got it," even when you're running on fumes. And guess what? Eventually they start expecting it, and when you finally can't give anymore, they call you selfish. Not because you are, but because they've gotten used to a version of you that never says no. That's what happens when kindness isn't backed by clarity. And the Stoics, they warned against this kind of self-sacrifice. Marcus Aurelius believed in helping others, yes, but never in a way that compromised your own integrity or peace. He didn't say, "Give endlessly." He said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." And part of being strict with yourself is knowing when to stop. Because here's the truth, and it might sting a little, when you give without limits, you aren't just being kind, you're trying to be accepted. You're afraid to upset someone, afraid to be seen as mean or cold. So you overcompensate, and in the process, you disappear. You lose your voice, your energy, your sense of self. Stoicism teaches that virtue, real goodness, comes with responsibility. It's not just about being nice, it's about living in alignment with reason, which includes saying no when something violates your values. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone constantly asks you for help. At first, you say yes because you care. But after a while, it becomes a pattern. They don't even say thank you anymore, they just expect it. And one day you say, "I'm really sorry, but I can't help you this time." Suddenly they're cold. They accuse you of changing, and you're left feeling guilty, even though you've done nothing wrong. That's not your fault. That's the cost of never setting boundaries early. People don't just respect generosity. They respect standards. When you draw a line and say, "This is what I give freely, and this is where I protect my peace," you teach others how to treat you. Epictetus once said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." That means if you want people to respect your kindness, you have to respect it first. Don't give it away like it's nothing, because it's not. Your time, your energy, your emotional support, those things are valuable. Not everyone deserves access to all of it. So here's the shift. Kindness is powerful, only when it comes with structure. Boundaries don't make you less loving. They make your love sustainable. And when you start showing up that way, you stop attracting users and start commanding respect. Here's the image I want to leave you with. Picture someone pouring water from a jug again and again into 1,000 empty cups. But the jug is never refilled. Eventually it runs dry, and when it does, nobody stops to ask why. They just get upset there's no more water. Don't be that jug. You can give, you can care, you can love deeply, but make sure you fill your own cup first, because real Stoic kindness knows when to give and when to hold the line. Now that we've seen the danger of kindness without boundaries, let's look at what true Stoic strength in kindness actually looks like, and how it can change everything. How Stoics show kindness without being weak. Now here's the twist most people never expect. Stoics weren't cold. They weren't heartless. They weren't robots walking around in togas telling people to deal with it. They were kind, but their kindness came from a place most of us aren't taught to operate from: inner strength. Let's take Marcus Aurelius, for example. He was the most powerful man in the world at the time. Emperor of Rome. He could have ruled with an iron fist, and no one would have questioned it, but he didn't. In his private writings, never meant to be published, you see something surprising: compassion, patience, care for others, even for those who wronged him. But he didn't grovel. He didn't tolerate disrespect. He held himself to a high standard, and he expected the same from those around him. He helped where he could, but he was never afraid to walk away when something threatened his principles. That's real strength. And that's what Stoic kindness looks like. Not desperate, not needy, not trying to earn approval. It's calm, it's deliberate. It's based on virtue, not validation. One of the core ideas in Stoic philosophy is something called benevolent indifference. Sounds like a contradiction, right? But it's actually a beautiful balance. It means you care about others. You do. Your part to be good, fair, and generous, but you're not attached to how people respond. You don't spiral if someone doesn't appreciate it. You don't get bitter if someone ignores your effort, because you know you acted with integrity. That's enough. This is where so many people go wrong. They're kind, but deep down they're hoping for a return. And when it doesn't come, it breaks them. The Stoics, they already let go of the outcome. They're kind because it's who they are, not because it gets them praise. And I'll tell you what, that kind of quiet confidence is magnetic. Think about someone like Mr. Rogers. Kind, soft-spoken, but would you ever call him weak? Not a chance. Or take Keanu Reeves, one of the most generous and humble celebrities alive. But you can tell there's a quiet strength behind everything he does. He's not trying to impress anyone. He just lives by his own code. That's Stoic kindness in modern form. When you're kind without needing anything back, when you're generous without making it your identity, people feel it. And more importantly, you feel it, because you're not chasing anything. You're not auditioning for approval. You're just living in alignment with your values. Now that doesn't mean you don't get hurt. The Stoics were human. They felt everything, but they didn't cling to those feelings. They didn't let rejection or disrespect control them. They focused on what was theirs to control: their actions, their responses, their integrity. So when someone took their kindness for granted, they didn't beg. They didn't argue. They simply adjusted and carried on with clarity and calm. That's the part most people miss. Being kind doesn't mean being available 24/7. It doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means showing up with heart, but never at the cost of your self-respect. You can hold the door open for someone and still walk away if they try to shove you through it. You can care deeply and still say, "That's not okay with me." Stoic kindness is full of boundaries and power, not weakness. And once you start living that way, you'll notice something incredible. People start treating you differently, not because you demand it, but because your energy says, "I value myself, I respect myself, and I won't give my kindness to just anyone." That kind of presence doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to explain itself. It just is. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable. When should you stop being kind altogether? Yes, even that has a place in Stoic thought. There's a moment that comes for all of us when you're sitting there, tired, disappointed, maybe even a little angry, and you realize, I've been kind to this person over and over again, and they just don't care. That moment hurts because we don't usually go into relationships or conversations expecting to be used. But when it happens enough times, you start to wonder, should I stop being kind? And honestly, sometimes, yes, you should. That might sound unstoic on the surface, but it's actually right in line with what the Stoics taught. Epictetus said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." So what does that mean in this context? It means kindness is only virtuous when it's appropriate, when it's guided by reason, not emotion, when it's based on values, not habits. Stoicism isn't about being endlessly agreeable. It's about acting with wisdom, with judgment, with discernment. That means sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to walk away, because if your kindness is enabling disrespect, if it's making someone worse, not better, if it's draining your peace, then it's not virtue anymore. It's self-neglect, and self-neglect is never noble. Let me give you a simple example. You're in a friendship where you're always listening, always helping, always supporting. But the moment you need something, even just someone to talk, dude, they're gone. They don't have time, or worse, they minimize what you're going through. What do? The Stoic answer isn't dramatic. It's not vengeful. It's clear. You stop. You stop giving your emotional labor to someone who only takes. You stop overextending. You stop pretending the relationship is mutual when it's obviously not. And you do it without anger, without a big confrontation. Just quiet, calm clarity. Because here's the thing, you don't have to be cruel to cut off access. You don't have to yell to create space. You don't need to explain yourself when your energy is being exploited. The Stoics believed in measured action. They taught that self-respect isn't loud, it's firm. So if you're constantly overlooked, taken for granted, or used, stop asking what more you can do. Start asking why you're still giving so much to people who give so little back. And if that resonates with you, if you've been there, I want to hear from you. Tell me below, has there been a moment where you realized your kindness was being taken for granted? What did you do? Or maybe, what do you wish you had done differently? Because those moments shape us, and the more we reflect on them, the stronger we become. Here's the mindset shift. Kindness should come from a place of wholeness, not a place of need, not the need to be liked, not the need to keep the peace, and definitely not the fear of being alone. You're allowed to choose peace over pleasing. You're allowed to choose boundaries over burnout. And you're absolutely allowed to stop being kind when kindness is being weaponized against you. That's not being harsh. That's being wise, and wisdom is the core of Stoic strength. Now that you know when to stop, let's talk about how to transform your kindness from something passive into something powerful. So let's flip the script now. What if your kindness wasn't something people walked over, but something they respected? What if your kindness didn't drain you? It energized you. What if being kind was actually your greatest source of strength? Because that's exactly what it becomes when you shift from passive to powerful kindness. Let's break this down. Passive. Kindness is when you say yes because you're afraid to say no. It's when you help because you feel guilty if you don't. It's when you listen, even though you're too exhausted to absorb one more thing. It's when you're giving to avoid conflict. It looks soft, but underneath, it's heavy. It builds resentment, and eventually it burns you out. Now compare that to powerful kindness. Powerful kindness is when you choose to give from a place of fullness. You set boundaries without guilt. You speak with honesty, not to hurt, but to be clear. You know when to walk away, and you don't lose sleep over it, because your kindness doesn't come from a need to be accepted. It comes from knowing who you are. That's Stoic. It's not about being emotionally detached. It's about being emotionally anchored. You're not chasing peace. You are peace. You bring it into the room with you. And you're not afraid to take it with you when you leave. Here's a simple mindset shift that helped me. Instead of asking, will they still like me if I say this? Ask, will I still respect myself if I don't? That question alone changes everything, because real kindness doesn't cost your self-respect, and it never requires you to shrink. Let me paint a picture. Imagine two people walk into a room. One is always smiling, always agreeable, constantly checking if everyone else is okay, but they're anxious, unsure, waiting for someone to validate them. The other walks in calmly. They're kind, they're respectful, but they don't overextend. They speak when they have something to say. They're generous, but not performative. Which one do people listen to? The second, every time. Because their energy says, I know who I am, and I'm kind because I want to be, not because I have to be. That's the energy we're building, and the great part is, you don't have to change your personality. You don't have to become cold or hard. You just have to shift your intention. Before you offer help, ask, am I doing this from love or from fear? Before you agree to something, do I actually want to do this, or am I afraid to disappoint someone? Those tiny moments of honesty stack up into real strength, and people feel it. They respond to it because powerful kindness isn't loud. It's calm, it's clear, it has boundaries. So here's your personal code, your mini manifesto. Be kind, but never at the cost of your truth. Be generous, but never to the point of exhaustion. Be understanding, but never forget your own needs. That's not selfish. That's stoic self-respect. And once you start living from that place, kindness becomes your greatest tool, not for approval, but for alignment. Now let's ground all of this with something practical, simple stoic habits you can build to create the kind of presence that naturally commands respect. Okay, so now you're probably thinking, this all sounds good, but how do I actually live it? How do you show up each day with that calm, kind, grounded energy that earns respect without ever having to force it? The Stoics had a few simple but powerful practices that, when used consistently, change the way you carry yourself. And that changes the way people treat you. Let's start with one of the most important: morning reflection. Every morning, before the chaos begins, before messages, distractions, and noise, sit with yourself. Just for a few minutes, ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? Where am I likely to be tested? How can I stay calm and act with intention? This is called premeditatio malorum, the Stoic idea of imagining the difficulties you might face before they happen. Not to stress yourself out, but to prepare yourself to respond with character. Because once you've mentally rehearsed the storm, it doesn't shake you when it hits. Second, emotional distancing. Stoics taught that most of our suffering comes not from the event itself, but from the way we interpret it. So next time someone disrespects your kindness, don't react emotionally. Right away, pause, step back in your mind. Say to yourself, this isn't about me, it's just information. That 1 second of space can stop you from spiraling into resentment and help you respond with clarity. Next, journaling. This is a huge one. Write down what bothered you today, what felt good, what made you feel like you crossed your own boundary or honored it. You'll start to notice patterns, people, places, or even thoughts that trigger you to overgive or silence yourself. Once you see the pattern, you can start making different choices. Then there's something even more powerful: voluntary discomfort. Now this one's tough but life-changing. The Stoics practiced being slightly uncomfortable on purpose, skipping a meal, sleeping on the floor, taking cold walks. Why? Because it built mental resilience. It trained them to stay steady under pressure. Try this. Once a week, do something just a little inconvenient or uncomfortable and remind yourself, I can choose discomfort without falling apart. You'll start to realize you don't need approval. You don't need everything to go smoothly. You can be calm no matter what. And when you bring that energy into your relationships, people notice. They start respecting your time, your boundaries, your presence, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. People respond to what you tolerate, but even more, they respond to what you radiate. And when your presence says, I'm kind, but I'm not weak, I'm generous, but I value myself, the whole energy of the room changes. You stop attracting people who want to use you and start drawing people who genuinely respect you. So ask yourself this, what's one practice you could start tomorrow morning that would help you carry yourself with more clarity? Even just 5 minutes of reflection or one strong no spoken with kindness can start rewriting your entire identity. You'll start to notice people will treat you differently when you carry yourself differently. And that's the Stoic path. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Now let's wrap this up with one final message, a simple truth. That might just change how you see kindness forever. One final truth about kindness you'll want to remember. Let's be real. Kindness has never been the problem. It's not weakness. It's not foolish. It's not naive. But kindness without self-respect, without boundaries, without inner strength, that's what leads to pain. And the Stoics knew this. They believed in goodness, not as something soft or submissive, but as a form of discipline. To be kind in a cruel world, to be generous in a world that often takes, to act with principle, even when it's easier. To lash out, that's not weakness, that's power. But it's a power that needs protection, it needs wisdom, it needs boundaries. Because if you offer kindness to people who only take, if you silence your truth to keep someone else comfortable, if you keep giving and giving, hoping one day they'll see your worth, you're not being stoic, you're being sacrificial. And that's not noble, it's unsustainable. So here's the truth you need to carry with you. Kindness is not a shield. It's a sword you wield with precision, not desperation. A sword you carry with clarity, not guilt. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to explain yourself. You just need to stand in your own quiet strength and choose kindness on your terms. Let the world see that kindness can be firm, that boundaries can be loving. And that being good doesn't mean being small, because when you live like that, you don't just protect your peace. You command respect without ever asking for it. And if you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss future insights on Stoicism and self-improvement. And remember, you don't have to change who you are to be respected. You just have to stop giving your kindness to people who never earned it. Live with strength, act with virtue, and let your kindness be the most powerful thing about you.